So, hello everyone. Hope you're doing well and welcome to another practicing session here at the Frenzel Pianoforte. Today we are going to continue where we left last week in last week's sessions, practicing session. So, with the Adagio of the Beethoven Sonata No.3, that's the Opus 2 number 3 in C major. That Adagio, by the way, is in E major. So last week we went through the whole piece in bits and pieces and shared my ideas and my thoughts with you. Basically, first impressions, because this Adagio was something, of course, we all try things, but not really was on my repertoire. So it's a kind of a fresh look. So, and we're doing this, sharing these practicing sessions, my journey actually to study the complete solo works by Beethoven, because at the end of this year we will record or start a recording project within 22 CDs, record 60 works by Beethoven, which is really something I'm looking forward to. And so in the way to that moment, I share with you these sessions which can go in every direction possible. From we discover things or together that are really excited for me. I would never have come up myself, because it's a nice way to interact with you, and also the focus during these sessions is really great. And so we discover sometimes things that I can take on my way as a musician. Hopefully you as well. And sometimes other things happen. So it's always a little bit up to the moment of itself, to see how what direction these sessions go into. That's actually what I want to say. And today we are going to play a lot, not to talk too much, because I really want to have this Adagio work. I'm going to say hello in the chat in a few seconds, and then we start with the session. And at the end, if you're watching this live, I will be checking your questions at the end of the session, which is on about 45 minutes. And so if you cannot stay for that long, leave your question in the chat. Anya, my wife, is also in the chat. She's moderating that. And so she will take a note of your question and will come down with your question. And I will share my ideas on that. So what we also will do today is some people asked that to demonstrate the questions on the slow movements. So this first beginning I can play in half beat, so to say, in single beat, and see what the result is. So for those of you who are new here, all of these Beethoven works and everything actually we do on this channel starts from the idea that in those days metronome numbers were to be read as whole beat notations. We call that also double beat. Whole beat means that you just take the two ticks of a metronome as a unity that represents the note value in the metronome equation. So here it's 8 note 56, which means if you take that on the metronome, so basically every up and down or left and right together form the unity of that 8th note. There is a video in the description box here below that will introduce you to that fascinating topic if you are really new to that. So now saying hello to Emmy here in the chat. Always nice to see you. I have to see that my microphone is not too far here, because otherwise you won't hear me. Let's start from the beginning. My computer is, of course, as always, not listening. Here it is. Rastislav, great to see you. As always, Zacharias, all very known names. It's always great to see you. The community here in the chat, it's a great thing. That interaction you have here is of course what makes these live sessions great. Also the premieres we have, so that is a pre-recorded practicing session at the Clavichord every Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Brussels time here. That's a session actually that is pre-recorded, as said, but premiered, so with the same features as the live streams. And if time allows, I will be in the chat there as well, hanging out with you. Which is a little bit more difficult during the live sessions, unless at the end, because practicing and sharing my thoughts on the interpretation and together watching the live stream and the chat is difficult for the, can imagine, concentration. Mikael, always nice to see you. A lot of patrons are in here. So the patrons, if you don't have heard of my Patreon site, there's also a link below they make the things possible that otherwise would not be possible. So if you want to become part of that awesome community, we have monthly hangouts on video calls, and I share some things on the Patreon wall, so to say, that are difficult to share on YouTube. Well, difficult in the sense of just things that I read, or just in betweens, little videos, little behind the scenes, things like that. And okay, Roman is here. Bob Ivanov, if I'm not mistaken, of Bob B, I should say. That's a new name. Welcome. Jonathan William Walker from Moscow. If I'm not mistaken, also a new member here. So great. Yar Zihar. I think that's also a new name. So a lot of new names here from Kurdistan. It's great. Always great when you write and hear where you come from, where you live. So we have a vision actually on where authentic sound is going. And with these live streams, it's amazing that we reach actually the 5 continents, actually pretty much every time. Bruce Nelson, also, if I'm not mistaken, a new name. So that's great to see a lot of names that we know and a lot of new names. Yeah, Anya writes, so great to see that authentic sound is all over the world. Well, isn't that nice? So guys, I hope you have a nice time in the chat and I can present some good content to you here. I think it will be a fascinating session because what I will do is also demonstrate a little bit the single beat thing at the beginning so you can make up your mind yourself. But other than that is pretend as if you were not here, which is basically the case. Virtually you're not, but virtually you are here, but as if I were practicing for myself. So, and what I do that with the piece, whether it's an Adagio or a Presto or an Allegro, doesn't matter. The piece needs to work. And for this Adagio, where you have so many different layers of note values, of things that Beethoven want to say, packed in one piece, it's sometimes hard to find that, to come to this unity of the piece, that once you're finished playing that movement, you as a listener, as a musician, but hopefully also as you as a listener will have the feeling, okay, this has been brought in a way that has a unity that's complete. It's finished now. It's hard. And sometimes during these practicing sessions, I share a lot what's going on inside my head, prevents me for really complicated pieces like this to be very focused on, the music itself. And this piece really requires that. So we're going to experiment that. I haven't played this week. I have to be honest with you. I was playing on the Fritz a lot, which is developing. It's not ready to be shared with you, but it's developing in an astonishing way, I should say. So we will have 2 pianofortes and a clavichord. That are really 3 amazing instruments. But I forgot a little bit about the Adagio, which is not too bad, because music, once you start practicing that, at least that's the feeling I have, it develops inside your system, your brain, whatever, even when not playing. So we'll see how that works. There was something else I wanted to say, but I totally forgot. So let's try and we see where we end. So if you haven't seen the last week's session, might be a good introduction, because there we went to a lot of details that might apply for today's session. So 56 is the tempo we have from Czerny here in the Simrock edition, which is the last edition Czerny made. It's very hard to find, even digital. It doesn't seem not to exist. That's unbelievable, because it's one of the most important editions that are made on Beethoven. But it's really hard. If you happen to find some editions, I think online are only a very few, Opus 27, send it to me. Happy to receive that. So 56 is the number we have here with the 8th note and whole beat interpretation. That would be for the up and down, left and right. So basically in our modern interpretation, we would be playing 16th notes, 56. We have some number 60. It's a little bit higher, also from Czerny. Yes, also a little bit slower, 54 or 50, I believe. Moscheles has 60. Bülow has 56, or Lebert, one of the two of that edition. List, I don't know. I don't have the list edition with the metronome numbers either. Also not easy to find. would I would be interested in that. I've just read about the list edition, so it's something that's just came onto my radar. It's of course interesting. So 56, we stick to that. And so for those of you who think, well, why sticking to a tempo that someone else gave? Well, it's the fast part of the fascination, and if you want to travel back in time, in other words, if you want to reconstruct the way people played back then, in this case, certainly Czerny. The other thing is if you consider Czerny to be a source really close to Beethoven or not, and I think it's obvious he is, but anyway, regardless of that, this is, for this edition, the tempo that Czerny played this piece in. And of course, it's not, nobody says that you have to take your metronome and just stick to that tempo throughout your whole piece as if you were a machine. That's of course not what this is about. But the tempo dictates a lot of things. Changing the tempo, I've said it a lot, is changing actually everything. It's your articulation, your phrasing. It's also changing the character of the piece. And so if we are talking on historically informed performance practice, I think reconstructing that from a given tempo of the past is a very logical thing to do. And yet you don't see that often, if not almost never. Not in a very consequent way, where you take the same approach for all the pieces, and not only for the ones who work in a certain way. So that's the reason why I do that. Is it easy? No, it's the opposite of easy. The most easy thing is just follow your instinct and make something. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I'm not saying that's an easy thing, but it's easier just to follow your own instinct, your experience, the way you formed your thoughts about playing music, and then just come to a certain performance interpretation of that particular piece. Inserting a tempo that not always is necessarily should or is supposed to be yours, or was a tempo that you would come up with anyway, like in this case, is something difficult, because you have to work with all the parameters that are influenced by the tempo, which is basically everything, and build this unity again around the tempo that, in my opinion, in whole beat is the tempo Czerny had in mind. Okay, having this said, I just play a little piece for you. Okay, so now just for the sake of experiment, let's try to do the beginning in half beat, single beat. So obviously this piece is playable in a half beat, unless there's certain passages that actually, but we mentioned that in the last episode, that really directs you to whole beat interpretation at the end with 64th note values, etc. But I'm just trying it in half beat for a while, and also to let you experiment the differences. It's a shock, really, the differences between what I did now and what I will do now. And, well, just for the sake of experiment. So yeah, I, we could spend an hour talking about the differences here. And also, of course, if you would play it in this tempo, you would start looking for, again, telling the story around that. I think it's very hard in this tempo though, because you have, well, you, in my opinion, it's not an Adagio character anymore. But that's of course up for debate, because people will say the way you play Allegros is not an Allegro character anymore. So that's not something, it's not an objective point. It's a point for yourself though to take with you. What do you think? How do you develop your idea of an Adagio? Is it something that really flows that quick, or not? But you will run into technical issues as well. And just to mention one, and then we continue to a whole beat interpretation. It's for instance at the end, and that's one of the reasons that this Czerny edition is so great. So Czerny uses for this last figure. So the fingering 4, 5, 3, 5, and then the 32nd note, the dotted 32nd note with the 64th note is 4, and then he makes a jump too. So and whole beat is makes perfectly sense. In single beat, you wouldn't do that. You would play it with one hand. So you have to find another fingering there. The fingering certainly points to the whole beat interpretation. But again, that's a side note. Just wanted to give you the two versions here, because in some fast performances, it's obviously very difficult, if not impossible. And I'm not. Someone wrote as a positive remark, though, it would be great if you played just a few pieces in single beat of the Czerny etudes, and it would show that you're not playing them slower than we usually play them, because you cannot play them in single beat. But that's the whole point of the first C major ones. I mean, it's easier, the easier versions of the easier etudes of Czerny, but still then, it's not my point to prove that. It's my point to showcase how they sound in whole beat. That's the whole thing. And there are a lot of pieces, for instance, also this first movement. Why should I play it in single beat where no other pianist is playing that in single beat? I mean, at the best you have 66 for 70 for the half note, where it is 80, so it's oftentimes even not possible. Well, this just as a side remark, but here it was possible to give you an comparison. There we go. Now seriously for the half beat. I'm making those 8 notes not too short. Last week I did that. Listen, what happens is you make it too short. Then the rest is, of course, very long. So it's the difference between or that's a really small detail, but it's so important. And so I'm just counting to 2 now. So like Czerny says, very slow pieces, you count in 16th notes. And so the 8 notes are counted in 2, and I let them go when the third count happens. And it gives a great emphasis to the next bar. Not emphasis, a great connection, I should say. wasn't too bad, I think. I have a feeling that this was a unity on its own. So now we come for something else. I think here the left hand is important. So the emphasis, of course, of the attention goes to the right hand. There you have the rhythmical pulse, rhythmical, it's driving this piece to somewhat mysterious, but it's the left hand. That's actually the melody, in my opinion. So every quarter note, we're going to try to give that as if it's one note on its own. And then so that you don't have this tension without necessarily the desire to push your tempo, your movement. It's not what is. You can have a little bit of tension in these beats, but they fall. I call that a metrical tension. So it's within the up and down. It's not over. Over the quarter note, over the 8 notes. It's not wanting to create the bow, so to say, by speeding up too much. A little bit sometimes. It's just a little bit of salt and pepper, more than normally. That could, but you shouldn't notice that. So let's try that with the right hand now. And now a little bit more. These notes in the treble, they are like a distance, a ghost that's saying something from a very far distance, which is very hard to make on these pianos. I should say on the Fritz that will be a little bit easier because the treble of the Fritz is a little bit more 18, well, it's difficult to say a date for a pianoforte, but it sounds a little bit older than this Pianosonate. It's 1820, 1825. So you have here another sound. The Fritz will come over this easier over the left hand. So I can make it softer there and more present at the same time. Well, as time will come, I'll demonstrate it on the Fritz as well. But here, it's hard. Better. Also the F sharp here, you need to release that note because you have to make the jump to the G, and if you do it too short, I think it's not beautiful. Let's try that. Up. That's not nice. So now we play full ending. Maybe. I sometimes wonder, Jenny doesn't indicate pedal here. It's not said, however, that you cannot use pedal, because if you compare these works with his pianoforte school, you will see that he's rather consistent with what Beethoven prescribes. So it's you cannot say, well, Beethoven doesn't subscribe or doesn't indicate pedaling here, so you are not allowed to do that. There is a certain level of inconsistency in that. Sometimes you see indication of pedaling in very obvious places, and then some places where you say, why isn't he indicated any pedaling here? If you then reconstruct what would be the general practice according to some authors, like for instance Czerny, he's an important voice in this, then you come to certain places where you say, well, maybe it's not out of the context of that time to add some pedaling. Be very careful with that though, because you are making interpretation. I mean, careful. Nobody's going to punish you for doing this, but you know, our goal is to try to reconstruct as much as we can from that period, which is difficult. But here it's so helpful for this piano to sound just adding a little bit of pedal. Listen. Maybe that's too much. And now a little bit rubato. Dum, ta-dum, ta-dum, ta. Crescendo. Piano. And now coming back. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now left pedal maybe. Okay, that's for this. I think that makes my life so much easier. So the decision I have made for the recording sessions is that I'm going to use a little bit more pedal in the slow movements than actually. If you read Hummel, he was very much opposed to any most use of the sustaining pedal. He was the musician who was known to be such a great pianist that he didn't need the right pedal, so the sustaining pedal to make music. But still, he says, well, if you do it in the slow movements because it makes the piano sing more. And it's here so obvious. And then suddenly you have the full range of sound of this piano that is actually helping you in creating this. Actually, it's a kind of sound cloud, but on these pianos, it's still so incredibly transparent when you do that it helps you building this tension, and even taking the tempo, the initial tempo, and pushing it a little bit. So not in the way as we were describing to make the to have these bows come out and play over the bar, you know, this pushiness. No, but slowly lift it a little bit, and then at the end you come back, and suddenly you have made way for this beautiful, ultra romantic and very progressive thing what he does here. We should not forget, this is, was hearing a noise, but it's actually the piano. We are still in 1793, 94. It's unbelievable, this. So, and here Czerny says, use a little bit of pedal. But wasn't that beautiful actually? That's, for me, this is in the direction of what I would like the piece to evolve in. So you have this beginning, this opening, which, and then goes a little bit up, down again, and then you have this. This is ultra romantic. Beethoven, who was a man who was falling in love all the time, almost. So we had some relationships, not really, but I mean, it's interesting to read about that. But this is such a passage from a young man who is in love. Actually, I mean, that's such a depiction of this green springtime colors out in the park. You know, on a Sunday afternoon, the birds are singing, and everything is perfect in life. Everything. It's nothing that can disturb your feelings, and even these dissonance that he brings in here. So every time the left hand jumps over the right hand, you have this dissonant, but that's so gently resolving into the harmonic atmosphere that you actually, those dissonance will normally would stand for some pain and trouble. Actually, here they are lovely in a way that's hard to imagine that such a dissonant can sound. So this is really an amazing passage for that time even, but then regardless of what time. And then this movement of the 32nd note, very strong here. Suddenly makes place as an accompaniment. It becomes an accompaniment, like someone with a guitar is playing alongside these young people. It's like offering the lady something, accepting. There's a strong voice again. Big contrast here, it's raining. It's like it was a dream only. 1, 2. Dissonance or hurting here. Here the left hand ends. Taken over by the left hand here now. And listen what happens now. How insanely beautiful this. It turned out to be a dream after all. It continues. The dissonances are hurting here. And then, now the beginning comes again. And now you understand why this is an introvert conversation at the beginning. It's reflecting on what happened. So what can be said now more than this? So how is it going to continue? He makes a great break here. Who expects this? C major. He wants to go back to his dream. And there it starts again. But in C major, not in E minor anymore. It doesn't end as he has expected. Forzando. But there we have E major. Fantastic modulation. And now he's back in his Sunshine Park. Listen. There he wants to be. So what was the dream now? The bad things or this? That's actually the question here. It's all a dream perhaps. No hurry here, just let the music go. Sorry. He doesn't want to end, huh? Happy end. It's too loud. Anyway. I think that's on the direction, on the path that I want to have this piece on. And you know, this is something you cannot repeat. It takes so much energy. These slow movements, these adagios, where so many things have to be in balance, because otherwise, I mean, yeah, if I would demonstrate now half beat, I mean, you would directly understand why, if you once are on this side, there is no way back. At least that I have the feeling this piece is now so deep, it has such an amazing story, so many colors. There is so much room also for you as a musician to form this music and to shape this music. If you want to be a little bit more dramatic, you can do that. I mean, by all means, if you speed up a little bit more, slow down a little bit more. I mean, don't go into the extremes, I would say, but you have so much playroom now to make it your own. Tell this incredibly, I would say that's a love story of Beethoven. We should rename this piece a love song. I mean, it's so tender, it's so sweet, it has all these emotions of that young man in the 20s. I mean, and making stories around this music, we don't generally, there is a tendency not to do that anymore. We liked the idea of abstract music that doesn't tell a story, but in that time it was very much true. That music, I mean, and you make it your own. You don't need to do that, but it helps to think in colors. I think a lot in colors when I play. So to shape a little bit of atmosphere, of character. Actually, I'm happy with the session. Damn yes. I didn't expect this piece to develop during this hour as it did now. So I'm not playing anymore what happens now is I close that door in my mind of this piece, and it will, like on a piano roll, play a lot of times, and it will develop because it takes me too much emotional energy now to push for this. And if you would record that, I always have the impression during these live sessions when things go well, I reach a higher level, so to say, than when I record the pieces. And in some sense, it might be true because it resembles more a concert. And on a concert, you can go to the limits. If you do that for the microphones on its own, then it's so easy to pass this line where you really are not supposed to pass. It's you should become very close, and the closer you come to this zero, so this is horizontal zero line, see that, it's the better. But you pass it with you go beyond it with just 1 millimeter, and it's over, game over. It's overdone then. So it's finding this extreme balance, and I have the impression during these practicing sessions that it's easier for me to reach those moments. But I don't know if that's true, because if you record a concert of which you had a very good impression, and the audience as well, if you listen back to it, you sometimes say, well, it's great for a concert, but maybe for a recording you need to have to a little bit more neutrality implement in your play. I don't know. Has it to do with kind of maturing the music, let it sink more, that it becomes really your own, that it's easier to reproduce? I don't know. It's a really complex system. But anyway, I'm really happy with this. I hope for you the same. Let me dive into the chat here for a moment. If you have something to say on these adagios. And these adagios it's like, when I started on the channel talking about double beat, what we call now whole beat, anyway, it's the same. It's back in January 2017 here when Lorenz visited us. I remember still the moment we had. He spent one time a year. He's a priest, and he has some family in Switzerland where he comes from. And he likes to spend a few days here with our family. He does that when we met for the first time in Upfingen. That's the place where Wolfgang Weller lives. He's a great pianist. He will visit us in June or July. We have some plans with the IRAR. But anyway, there we met in 2009. And since then, Lorenz comes actually every year, a few days till the week, depending on the time he has. And we talk about music. We play a little bit at the clavichord. Now it's his piano, by the way. So he will come in August again. And so in 2017 in January was the same. And I told you the story a lot of times. We had these debates about the slow movements. Of course, I was a Telsma fan, and I actually never tried it for real, these tempi, until the Mozart Munich Sonata. You know the story, and I'm not going to repeat that. But anyway, we were on Sunday, was about to leave on Monday morning, and last day he is inviting us for having dinner somewhere, and we went to an abbey here nearby in Postel. Great place to be. We had a nice lunch, and on our way back home in the car, I said to him, we maybe should do a video about tempo. In fact, you see me asking questions in that video that if you hear me talk now on whole beat or double beat, you would say, going back, yeah, Wim, but you're faking those questions because you know the answer. But actually, during the recording of that video, I didn't know the answers yet. It was just for me something that was out there, but not really. And so for the first time, I heard about Mezen, about the metrical second and things like that. So if I tried Czerny out at the clavichord there, I wasn't even aware of how fast it was. So, and since then, the opposition came, of course, it's normal, but on the idea on its own. But there is something that's called the overtone window, which is a kind of limit that where people are talking about something, you have a limit at one side and at the other side. And when that window actually moves, you start making room for other things. And so by talking a lot about double beat and whole beat, actually the overtone window is shifted towards, I wouldn't say a general acceptance because we are not that far, but now the focus is, well, with the slow movements, if that's possible. And yeah, these sessions, I think, hopefully show you that it is possible. Not saying that there are no slow movements that for me also pose some problems, like for instance, the pathétique slow movements is really, really extreme. But we'll see how that goes. Um, but overall, it's a new world that's being revealed for me and hopefully for you as well. That was the ping pong video, Anya writes, yes. And actually, the video I've uploaded on last Wednesday was a video that I wanted to make for a long time. It's the actual title of the video would be Basic Introduction to Tempo Research, or even Historical Tempo Research, because I think it is. But of course, the video has now over 4,000 views, I think, in less than a week. And if I would have used another title, it would only have not even 1,000 or 1,500 press. But so sometimes that's what YouTube requires you to be a little bit clickbaity, but in a positive way, because the consequence of that is that if you want to hear Beethoven and Chopin play, at least in my opinion, that Apple, that pendulum is your time machine. So it's not misleading people who click on that either. But that's actually the follow-up video of that ping pong video. So it gives room also to develop new videos and new ideas while referring to that video for people who are new here. So I see John referring to Andy, who I was talking to just right before this live stream, and I thought he had lessons. So I hope, Andy, you're not skipping your lessons to be at the live stream here. He will not. He's doing great. So okay, I'm scrolling through our chat here. Remy, see, okay, Simrock, name of editor, yeah. So yeah, the Simrock editions, it seems to be very easy to get them, and of course some national libraries will have them, but it's not even then easy to obtain them. I've asked several. So I'm actually really going to contact the Beethoven House in Bonn. They must have scans of the Simrock edition. If they don't have it, something is wrong with our system. And they will have it, I'm sure. And I think also national libraries have it, but I've contacted some of them, and it's not always easy to have access to people who really want to make the scans and of them, or the copies, you know. Hammerklavier in the Simrock edition, I think it's necessary for me. I'm hesitating of practicing that more than I'm doing now, because the fingerings of Czerny are so important. They reveal so many things of his interpretation that once, if you have adapted another fingering or made your own fingering even, it's hard to play from another edition, because those fingerings are in your system. And the Hammerklavier, I've practiced the first movement a little, well, but again, I'm not pushing with the Hammerklavier because I want to play that firsthand from the Simrock edition. So that's a work on its own. So, okay, there's Andy. I see him. So, great. Okay, Mikael, if I start playing again, the number of the bar would be helpful. That's a great idea, and the Czerny edition here doesn't have bar numbers, but I remember that for next times. That's good. Theoretically musical, practice your name, your YouTube name more. No, it's going wrong again. Emmy writes, as a piano player, I'm at times envious to vinylists because they have so wonderful music as the grass is greener at the other side. Yes. Yeah. I think as a pianist, we shouldn't complain either, right? Yeah, as Remy says, these online university libraries are great, but sure, they don't scan all and don't share all. That's true. But on the other hand, if you go in the Petrucci library, so IMSLP, and see what's available there, I mean, the other day I had a conversation with John, who's moderating the chat as well. We were hanging out on Zoom, and I was saying to him, he sent me a bunch of scores of composers I've never heard about. and it's good music, but it shows you the context around Beethoven, and there was a guy. I have Jonas in the chat. He can maybe type it in. Jonathan, an American composer, who was a student of Marshallus. But how cool is that? I mean, writing etudes and nocturnes. I think in Holbeat, there's no discussion about that even. And so you discover on those libraries a lot of composers you've never heard about, and it's a lot of music is there, but still some essential scans like for the Simrock edition. And I think it's because Czerny still has such a bad name today. I've read comments about people who find him pedantic, he's writing everything in detail. Yeah, aren't we lucky that he did all those things? So he gave us so much information. He's so close to Beethoven. He was Beethoven's most advanced student. He took care of all the students that came to Beethoven to practice piano. He sent them all off to Czerny, including his nephew. So he was so popular as a teacher that he didn't have time for a career, which he could have had. Well, Czerny was born in a time or was raised in a time of came to professional standards where there were too many wars in Europe. So it was just not the time for traveling. And so that broke a little bit his international career, but he was teaching from 8 in the morning till 8 in the evening, every day of his life, and then composing and making all these editions from 8 o'clock till midnight, every day of his life. It's amazing, this guy. And that edition is not everywhere, it's nowhere. That's something I cannot understand. We will find it, and when we find it, I hope to be able to make an edition for Authentic Sound of the Simrock edition, because that would be so cool to have that next to the Beethoven CDs, just as something of a unity, and then doing a Kickstarter, but that will be later for a reprint, not only, but an annotated reprint, in-depth revision of the Pianoforte School by Czerny, which is, I think, something that's a must-read for everyone who's diving into the Pianoforte school of that time. I mean, reconstructing Beethoven and what have you. That would be so cool, along with the Beethoven project, to have that project enabled through a Kickstarter campaign. A beautiful, luxurious edition where we have people writing about the history on Czerny and this Pianoforte school, the context of the time, and also annotate what he is saying in that, because it's 200 years old almost, you have to put everything in context. So we're dreaming. There, John has it. Jadason. He's a German. I thought he published in America. I should say, yeah, okay. He lived in America, though? No? Right? It's not too important. Hori Gaida, hi Wim, and on your first live stream that I've caught, beautiful performance. These early pianofortes are beautiful, especially the way the color changes through the compass. Great to have you, Hori. Hope you pronounce your name correct in the French way. So John continues, Jadason, he studied privately with Liszt too and thought Greek and others lived into 1922. So Kostas is late, no problem. So we have to catch up with the music of Kostas. There's some great sonatas waiting. And I feel to have way too little time. I mean, I would love to continue with the symphonias and the inventions, and we will do that. Joris Potvliega has built an amazing new clavichord, which is actually based on Adlung. Not going into detail too much, but Adlung, while Anja's coming down, Adlung is, he published a work on instrument building, amongst which clavichord 1726 related to Bach. And
I'm not trying to get through because it's very difficult.
She is a little bit modest, my wife. You don't say hello to the people.
Yeah, but it's so difficult with all the pianos.
You can stand over here.
Okay.
And you can see yourself here on the little screen.
Okay. No, that's really little. I can see myself. Okay.
Yeah, that's you. So this is Anja. In case you've never met her, she is the driving force.
So that's were a lot of questions. I don't think you answered this one. So, from theoretical
I can pronounce his name. Theoretically musical.
TM, that's
TM,
easy.
yeah, we call you TM. Wouldn't that be great? So I just finished that on the Symphonias. That instrument is actually a copy of what Adlung describes, and Joris believes he wrote a 60-page article on that. That will go in summary with the CDs of the Bach partitas that will be released soon. 15th of June, we will make some videos on that.
Already said it.
So he basically reconstructed the instrument that's actually described in that Adlung book. It's for the first time that people look to that. And if you read this article, it's fairly obvious that that almost for 100% certain must have been the clavichord that Bach had. It is just in front of our eyes, all this information. The only thing we have to do is just see it. And so that instrument will be available. It's available. I mean, I can have it tomorrow if I want. And I really would like to do the recording of the Symphonias and Inventions in the little chapel there for YouTube, and then make a CD and vinyl recording here on that instrument. Not that I don't love my clavichord, but that would be
Where do you going to put that instrument?
in the studio.
Okay.
She's kicking me out, I'm making up this story that I really would like to have my studio, but the basic truth is that I'm sick and tired of all the instrument and the cables and the amplifiers and the lights.
And the lights
And I hope not me, but yeah.
No, not you. So
My questions here. So Glenn, use moderator in sections of this piece. Yeah, that I've thought about that too. So the moderator would give you this sound, like this.
I get out.
So instead of I have this. That would be cool, right? The only thing is I don't know. I have to be honest in this. On the early instruments Beethoven had in this time, did he had this Walter already, 1793? I don't know. I think he still had the Stein pianoforte. But I have to study on that. It's shame on me that I don't know that. But I don't think those instruments had a moderator already.
And then I said to TM, that's a big, difficult question. Do you want a very long answer or small?
Which composer I'm listening to the most? If Beethoven recording would exist in double beat and whole beat, but played beautifully, I would listen to Beethoven a lot. But I don't listen to music that much. I did listen more in the time where I had these vinyl disc recordings shared with you on YouTube. The reason I did that was primarily to force me listening to music. And now my beautiful turntable is there, standing still. If I listen to music, what I really like is listening to Mahler recordings in conductance of Bruno Walter. That's for me really, really nice. Music of Richard Strauss, Vier letzte Lieder. That kind of music is something I really, really love. The Vier letzte Lieder I listen to once a year only. That's too emotional for me. Ravel is one of my favorite composers. So later than I'm playing music, and the reason is I don't listen to this music a lot because of the tempi people take. That's just as it is. And I don't have a lot of time. Madame Atlantic Sound, yes.
That sounds great.
That would be sweet.
Thanks, Remy.
Oh, okay. Okay, guys.
We had a lot of thumbs up, so thank you.
Yeah, don't forget to give these live streams thumbs up. That's important for YouTube. It seems as is you to be here with us watching these live streams, because otherwise it would be I would feel very lonely here, only by myself. So, and I thank my patrons, as I did in the beginning. They are really making things possible that otherwise would not be possible. So if you check that page out, I would be very, very thankful, and you would see the reason why, because we are with 85 people over there. It's actually amazing. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you again on Thursday for a recorded session here at the clavichord. What am I going to do there? I was thinking on finishing the fingerings of that variation series I started and then going to practice that with you, but many of you asked me to continue making fingerings, which for me is totally not understandable that you like that. I think it's so boring, but anyway, you like it, so I will do that, and that's great for me as well to do that together with you. So 45 minutes in the live stream, that would be great. Under an hour. Okay, guys, thank you. Hope you see you Thursday again. Stay tuned for other videos this week, and see you soon again. Bye.